Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to our City Council meeting this April 13th, 2023. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. I thank you for participating in your city government. We ask that you please silence all electronic devices at this time. Our invocation this afternoon is by Pastor Alden Whiteman from the Amazing Grace Baptist Church. Could we all please stand together for the invocation, remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, we come before you with thanksgiving in our heart that you would be the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, has opened up the throne of heaven to hear our pleas, to hear our cause. Intercede, dear Lord, for this meeting and bless it abundantly. Be with those who have been chosen to be leaders and give them wisdom and guidance over this meeting, over this community. Be with those that bring order and needs before them, that they'll be heard with an open heart to their call, to their needs. I pray your blessing upon this meeting. Pray Christ be lifted up and glorified. I pray you be with our St. Cloud City. I pray, oh Lord, you particularly be with our law enforcement. Watch over them and protect them, as there's so little respect for law enforcement and for life anymore. Watch over each one. Bless this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Whiteman. Please join me in our pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Here.
Councilmember Matheny? Here. Councilmember Gilbert?
Here.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Here.
Ms. City Manager, do you have any agenda updates to add?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I need to request that we move item E, Resolution 2023-063R, to council action. I'd like to pull item U off of the agenda.
Wait 1 second here. All right, you're going to pull item U?
Off the agenda, yes.
So be it.
And remind the council that we did have an add-on item number X.
The add-on item is under the consent agenda, and that'll be item X. At this time, we have a presentation for the Employee of the Month Award. And I recognize Gabby Duran.
All right, so I am here to we nominated somebody for Employee of the Month. This is going to be an interactive one. We're from Parks and Rec, so we're fun, right? So there's going to be some times where I ask you something, and then I want you to repeat something back to me, okay? So has anyone heard of Bob the Builder? Bob the Builder? Okay, so it's like, Bob the Builder, can he fix it? And then, yes, he can, right? So this one's going to be, can he build it? And you're going to say?
Yes, he can.
All right, we're good. Okay, so we're going to put some pictures up. Oh, they already put the name. That's not fair. All right, so really quick, we had a table that we wanted to build at the pool. It was a custom table that went around, that pole that's there. It's a big umbrella. It would have cost me like thousands of dollars to do this if I purchased it through a vendor. But can Michael build it?
Yes, he can.
All right, there we go. custom shelving over at the West End. If you've ever been over there, has anyone been to the West End before? It's a disaster. Can he build custom shelving?
Yes.
All right. And this is Peghorn, the Trail of Terror. Anybody been to Trail of Terror? Trail of Terror? All right, so all that custom stuff that's in there, all the stuff is there. That's from Michael. So can he build it?
Yes, he can.
All right. Oh, and then we are doing a triathlon. So these were like $100 to purchase for these bike racks for them to, put all their bikes up and get everything ready. And he was able to build me 4 of them with least the cost of it. So again, can Michael build it?
Yes, he can.
All right. So just so we can put it on here. Michael takes his job to heart. He is prideful and passionate. I was able to truly experience his passion during our night hosting Citizens Academy. He took the time to show them how to plot a burial site. Very interesting, okay? The different types of services, lots, columbariums, and educated them on the history of Mount Peace Cemetery. The consensus of Michael from all the Parks and Recreation leadership is his willingness to help out no matter what. He is our Bob the Builder. And then his attention to detail and seeing it through is impeccable. He has saved the city money instead of utilizing a contractor or vendor. Michael also has a vision for the future of the cemetery. We're honored to have him a part of our team. Thank you for all that you do and continue to do. When your time here on earth is up, you will be in good hands with Michael at Mount Peace, your center place for eternal life. Come on, Michael!
Congratulations. And when I look for someone that can build it, you're going to be the one I'm going to look for.
Yes, you can, right?
On the other side.
Oh, other side?
That was awesome.
It's not a good side.
Congratulations. Well, I see a bicycle in front of me. There we go. The next item on our agenda is the Citizens Forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the City Council. Each person is requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Gary, is it Tolley?
Yes, sir.
Come on in, Gary.
Hello.
Please state your name and address for the record again.
Gary Tolley, Leesburg, Florida. And I'm wondering if Mike can help me with my presentation, because apparently he does everything well. Folks, it's a pleasure to be in front of you today. I had, you should have before you the presentation I put together, and I understand this is an open forum, so I'll be brief. But we have a situation. I'm the community relations advocate for Libby's Legacy Breast Cancer Foundation. What we've done is we've brought shoe and clothing donation bins into the city, and right now your code enforcement are doing their job, and they're trying to make sure that everything is compliant. So we have, as you see on this page, the 4 locations we currently have. I have a few other companies who would wish to sponsor, but just want to make sure they're compliant with what city has the proper paperwork and such. So this first page shows you that in the year since, excuse me, since February of 22, we've had our donation bins on 4 of the properties locally, and we've collected an astounding 86,874 pounds of textiles that would have otherwise maybe have gone into the landfill. And we hope that you folks see these bins out there and recognize that they're serviced twice a week, and that we keep them clean, and our relationship with the folks who sponsor pretty strong. So we, in the time, the 7-Eleven has collected over 26,000, Dunkin' Donuts over 25,000, Jiffy Foods over 14,000, and Levy Liquors over 10,000. So what we're faced with is code compliance had mentioned that we have to clean this up and get compliant or have them removed. So on the back of this page, we have some issues that we feel we would like you guys to look at with a more openness. We're being asked to enclose these donation bins as if they were dumpsters. The requirement to have signatures from the owner of the property, well, in most cases, that's really difficult. We get it from the property, the business on the property. Positioning that we're being asked to put them beside or behind the building, and sometimes we have to add an extra bin because of the amount of clothes that are being donated by your citizens. So I was hoping that we could get direction to your staff and maybe work with us on that. And obviously, we'll do what we can to comply. But on these items here, obviously, we'd like to see it maybe be a little bit more conducive to us doing business here in the city. I have 5 seconds, and I want to thank you folks for your consideration, and I hope we can hear from your city staff on this. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, sir. Thank you for all you do. What percentage of your revenue goes towards the NPO, and what percentage of it is operating expenses?
Okay, the way it works is a little different than most. That product that we collect it actually belongs to Libby's Legacy. So Libby's Legacy owns it, we buy it back from them. A little different paradigm than what most companies do. We're operating, well, Libby's gets approximately 5 to 7% of the overall, the operating expenses. We work on pennies. So at the end of the route, we may collect X amount of pounds, translating X amount of dollars, but the profit margin is razor thin. But we always make sure that Libby's gets theirs before we take ours. And I could, just to follow up, I can get more detailed information on that if you would like.
Yes, please.
Okay, sure.
Do we have any other comment from the council? Ms. Miller, can you get together your staff and address this issue and bring back a proposal, or have you already done that?
Mayor, I've already reviewed, and one of the charges that I've had from my time here at the city has been to try to beautify 192. I reviewed our land development code. I reviewed the requirements that staff recommended, and I believe that putting these at the rear or the side locations is the best for us as we're moving forward. Often you'll find that they are not placing things within the containers and it's on the ground around it. It might not even be what they're supposed to be collecting. It may be trash. I know that the gentleman said that theirs is always kept nicely. I had staff go out there the next day and they found around it. So staff does not support changing our current practice.
Okay. Do we have any other comment from council? You got to do what staff says. All right?
Well, I was
Got
actually
it.
hoping that somebody on your council would see that it is doing good for people. And there's a letter inside the package I sent with, we have the letter from the Women's League, and, they are supportive of us. And, again, there's community involvement, and we're just trying to make it a little bit more fair for us to do what we need to do. So I know you allow these, but how we get around some of those stumbling points.
Councilman Urban.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you do great things for the community. I've had conversations with you previously, and my question is, I think that the city manager mentioned it maybe could work if it was put on the side or behind the building. And is there any way to work out, negotiate that, or is that?
Well,
We
I
would
think
love
that's,
any opportunity, sir.
Mr. Urban, I think that's what he's asking for. Is currently these boxes are permitted in the city. There are certain restrictions that apply to them, and I think he's asking for you to direct staff to loosen those restrictions.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
You're being silent. You have anything else to add?
That's all. I mean, I would be in agreement that you know we're trying to beautify 192, and sometimes at no fault to you guys, but sometimes there's things that get placed all over there, trash and that kind of thing. So I just worry about loosening the restrictions will make that a problem if it's right on the front of 192.
I think it's also a safety issue. Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, that's a good question, Councilman Urban. The items that are placed that are not acceptable by your organization, do you pick those up? Do you leave them there? Do you take them to the dump? How are those discarded, man?
Yes, that is, I'm glad you asked that. So in a 10-foot radius around our donation bins, our drivers are instructed to clean up, pick up, and as you see in some of those images, that's what they need to look like once our drivers service. So we take whatever isn't, for instance, a mattress does, you know, nobody wants a mattress on their property. So what we'll do is we'll take that to the dump on our dime, but we do pick it up because our relationships with our sponsors, these are the business folks who support us, very strong. They want to do what's right. And from another standpoint, they want to divert the textiles from your landfills. So with that being said, we tell our drivers, especially in this city, because this city has been nothing but positive, with the exception of the occasional issues where one bin won't be able to take all the product. So we need a second bin, but that's against code. So yes, so I guess it was said, we're hoping that we can loosen some of the restrictions that keep us from doing a good job, a better job than what we're currently doing. And with the understanding 192 beautification, to the side of the building's fine, but when we're asked to enclose it and put it behind a building, that's when it becomes a little different than what other charities are being asked to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Manzares?
Well, I was just going to point out, every donation box in the city is treated the same way. So every charitable organization wants to do this has to do that. So we just need some direction. If the council wants to move forward, we can certainly do some. If not, and leave it the way it is, we certainly leave it the way it is.
Would anyone else on the council like to speak to this? If not, you're going to have to do what the city guidelines are.
Understood, and
Thanks,
thank
sir.
you all for letting me have this much time. And
Thank
can
you.
we hear it from Mike one more time? Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak during the citizens forum? If not, we move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. First of all, I'll ask the council, are there any items that you're wanting to direct your attention to on the consent agenda?
F,
Are you wanting to pull F?
F, J,
Wait a second. Did I hear you say J?
yes,
Is that it?
and S and T are both together, Mr. Mayor.
And do what now?
S and T, they're both similar, but S and T, please.
And T.
Yes, sir.
All right. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. Could we pull O for discussion? Q
And Q.
and Q.
With that, Mr. Gilbert, we'll go to item number F first.
Yeah, we're talking about the landfill, we're talking about monitoring. and the cost is $201,000. I know we're being close to repurposing that land. Is this monitoring cost to the repurpose, or is this a yearly cost of the $201,000?
So this is monitoring that's required as part of our FDEP permit. So at this point, I don't think we're looking to repurpose the landfill for at least another 10 years.
Is it 10? Okay.
Yeah, so I think staff's been talking about doing a transfer station master plan, but the landfill still, I believe, has about 10 years until the DEP permit expires.
Okay. Thank you, City Manager. Now, is that 201, is that per year or per, maybe I didn't read it right. I didn't see a time frame.
That I'll have to ask Mr. Felblinger.
Good evening, Kevin Felblinger, Public Works Director. It is just for this 1 year. Like I said, there's actually, we have every 5 years we're required to look at some of the leachate areas there. That's why it's a little more expensive. Okay. This is also a new consultant that's coming on board to be able to do this, so they have to do a little bit of catch-up work from our previous area there. But that is for this year.
So that's this year. Now, you said 5 years you have to do it now. Will this take place next year, or will it be 5 years down the road we have to look at this
Well,
again?
we actually have different kinds of monitoring. We have the excuse me, the gas monitoring is required to be done quarterly. The groundwater is required to be done biannually, but the leachate system is only done once every 5 years. Okay. So like I said, so the next year will be less because we will have just the groundwater monitoring and the gas monitoring, where the leachate system would not be part of that. So the next 4 years will be less than this amount.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gilbert, I believe the next item is J.
This is a great idea, I believe. Who, with the Parks and Rec Department, will be in charge of this? Because I know you all are super busy and do a super great job, and you're adding a committee and an advisory committee. One, how will we get this committee? And then two, who will be supervising that?
Hi, good evening. Stephanie Holcamp, Parks and Recreation Director. The committee will be overseen by the Recreation Superintendent. I oversee the current Recreation Advisory Committee. The superintendent will see the Teen Advisory Committee.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how are we going to get the Teen Advisory Committee?
So it'll work just like any other committee, like Recreation Advisory, Tree Advisory Committee. They'll submit an application to the clerk's office, and then it will be passed out to you guys to
I think it's a great idea to get the youth involved with these committees and stuff to learn government stuff, so thanks.
Yeah.
I just wondered, you're putting something on your plate, who's going to take it, but you explained it to me. Thank you very much.
Well, you're retired, you could help with it. I'm sorry. Just a thought, just a thought. Anything else, Mr. Gilbert, on this, Jay?
I think
Still laughing.
I'm just retired. It's an 80-hour-week job.
It brings us to item O. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So this is about it's a contract to build the multi-use trail on Florida Avenue. And I asked to see the plans. They weren't included in our agenda item, and I had a couple questions for the city manager. And one of them was the plan had multiple locations where the road was going to be open cut and then the asphalt was patched. So I asked the question because I've done these projects where you get sad when you get done because you have this beautiful new thing and you've got patchwork quilt pavement on Florida, and should we include milling and resurfacing? And the response I got to my agenda package was we were going to have a number at the meeting. I don't know if anybody from Quinn is here. And if they have a number for milling and resurfacing?
Chad Clark, Vice President of Quinn. Yes, the resurfacing was figured as it's just a rough budget number that we come up with today. And assuming just a mill of asphalt of 1.5 and 1.5 new asphalt is $350,000 to $375,000. We would have to do some cores and determine kind of the base and substrate material, because no one's real sure if there's brick pavers under it or what the base is, and there's a little bit of a unknown there as far as once we start milling, we could pull up brick, we could expose the base, but 350 to 375 is the budget.
Is that with striping too?
Whatever striping's on the plan already would be included, so.
So I've just kind of wanted to bring it up to council because I just know you get done and also we could wait and see how it looks. I understand some of the plans changed from what I got, and now there's going to be some directional drilling instead of open cutting to cut down on all the.
Yes, directional has been figured because it's more cost effective, and it's also less invasive to rerouting traffic and affecting neighbors. So that's why we looked at it that way.
So maybe we just have that in the back of our mind, like, let's see how it turns out, and just keep in mind we might have to do something with the pavement on that. But my secondary question was, I didn't understand why we were requiring signage and pavement markings on the road that says this entire lane can be used by bicycles and put bicycle markings down Florida Avenue when we're building a trail. We want people to be on the trail, not on the road. You almost could say, well, then just stripe and mark the road and let the bikes go down the road. And do we even need the project? I'd like to ask staff to go back to the engineer of record and find out if that's needed. I know that came from a staff comment, but sometimes there's preferences versus what's required. So I was going to see how the council felt about that, because it seems kind of counterintuitive to me to say the entire lane can be used for bikes. And then we're building a trail. So, but that was it. Okay, that was the end of my comments on that one.
All right.
So we'll have staff go back.
I had consensus.
You
yes.
got consensus. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
To the engineer of record.
Item Q, Ms. Matheny.
Yes, I just wanted to say kudos to this. This is when the utilities were still in the city of St. Cloud, we partnered on a grant project, and that's item number M on our consent agenda, which the federal share of this project is $2.5 million, which will be used towards reuse storage pond expansion that Toho Water Authority will be doing now since the utilities were transferred over. I just wanted to clarify item Q because I missed it when I read my 1,200 pages of agenda backup. But I thought we were paying for the grant professional to help with the monitoring and reporting in the tune of $375,000. And I said, well, why are we paying that versus Toho? Because the utilities have gone over. It is reimbursed by Toho, so we're doing it up front and they're reimbursing us. So I just wanted to clarify that because I totally missed it when I read the package.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, you wanted to speak to item T?
Yeah, S and T are.
And S?
Yeah, they're kind of familiar to me. The only thing I'd ask for, and I think I've read it, but just to make sure we have our insurance and waivers all in place for that contractor or vendor to come in, because that's something I wouldn't want it to come back to us without the proper insurance for those two areas. I'm sure it's done. I just wanted to get it off my chest because, as you know, insurance costs are costly, and then they always fall back in the biggest pockets. So if somebody did get hurt or injured on these watercrafts, that we were covered with insurance by the vendors.
Mr. Mayor, and I was going to ask to have this item S removed also for one reason, but to answer Mr. Gilbert's question first, the proposed agreement includes the insurance requirements that were essentially stipulated by the city's insurance carrier and representative, and that's what both of these vendors are required to maintain that level of insurance. They also, both agreements require that all participants in their activities sign off on waivers that would hold the city and identify the city harmless for any activities that are involved in their business entities and their services. In front of you for item S is a revised Exhibit A to the agreement. And essentially it's the same one that was in your packet. However, it adds when Ms. Matheny was reading the 1,200 pages, she noticed that there was not, and it was intended to be in this exhibit, a definition of what's referred to as personal watercraft. So it adds the statutory definition of personal watercraft into the agreement, as those are the items that staff is recommending City Council authorize for item S. So.
Thank you. I knew the city had it covered. Just that insurance thing is, I want to make sure. So
Thank you. Councilmember Matheny.
So when this came before council, however many, 6 or 8 months ago, probably before our 2 new council members, we decided to go out to an RFP and have people make submittals to the city and come with the proposals. And to me, I don't feel like we're ready for these agreements yet. I was expecting the vendors to come and say, here's all the things I'm going to do for the city. But I felt like it was like we are wanting all these things from the city. And then the monthly fee I thought was too low because I feel like we got to strike a balance, right? It's taxpayer dollars. Everything was built with taxpayer dollars. It's maintained with taxpayer dollars. It's going to cost, staff time. It costs time to create the agreements. It costs time to do the RFP. But then there's a benefit, right? They're bringing something to the residents of the city of St. Cloud. So, there's like a balancing act. But to me, I don't feel like we're out of balance. I'm concerned about the contracts. I had a bunch of questions for the city manager in my agenda review. I'm not comfortable with them as they are today. And maybe it needs to be a percentage of sales, like a minimum monthly fee and then a percentage of sales. I just feel like it's just not in a good place for me. I'd like to vote on these 2 separately.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I have a public comment. You have anything else, Councilmember Matheny?
No.
Tyler Matheson. You've requested to speak to item S. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tyler Matheson. I have rented with recreational water sports multiple of times, and each time we go out, they follow by the book. They use the correct steps. They lead us which way they should. So by all boating safety standards that are put on by the Florida State statutes and everything that goes with them. So the no wake zone, the correct way to go out of the canal, when to go fast, when to slow down. They follow all the correct standards. As to other companies who may come out, or other jet skiers don't. There are people who go in the lake and go full throttle as soon as they push off the dock. Some people who don't wear life jackets at all, who just go straight out with no life jackets. So I believe that this company is a very good company to rent from. It's very goal-oriented, and it's very by the book. They're not just gonna, throw caution to the wind because, it'll please the customer. They go step by step by step the correct way to do things, and not just toss rules out the window for the sake of fun. I'm a fisherman myself, and I know that rules are in place to keep everybody safe. If everybody were to just do whatever they want, everybody would be hurt all the time. There could be prop incidents. There could be people getting run over. So when recreational water sports follows the rules, as I've seen them, as they lead me out, show me the correct way to do things, I believe that, that what they're doing is the correct thing. And the other people who either are renting or just driving their jet skis aren't doing the correct thing, or just acting a fool and, got all this money, let's go blow it and act like a fruitcake. So that's what I believe in.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Angel Colon, Jr.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Angel. I live here in St. Cloud, Old Canoe Creek. I want to say I used to work for recreational water sports.
Could you give us your address, please?
3014 Elbow Drive.
Thank you.
And I want to say I used to work for recreational water sports. And like Tyler was saying, we do everything by the book. And when the lake was shut down, I had to find a new job. So currently I'm not with them at the moment. But I would show the people the way to go. We take them to a set buoys out there in the water, and if they're acting full, take them out. You know, no jokes on the water at all. And I want to say that we always did everything by the book. We've never had any issues. I really believe this would be beneficial for St. Cloud to bring people over here. Most of the residents that rented with us were from St. Cloud didn't even know we were there, and they were shocked. They were ecstatic. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ross Oberlin.
Good evening. My name is Ross Oberlin. I live at 4198 Quailwood Drive in St. Cloud. I've been here for 4 years, and I really appreciate the work that the town has done at the lakefront. Those 2 mile stretch of the lakefront is just beautiful. My wife and I enjoy it. I have had the opportunity to see the operations of these personal watercrafts on the lake, and I just want to echo what the last 2 speakers have said. Recreational water sports, they train their operators, they make sure that they know what the rules are, and they go out there and they supervise them, which is most important. Irresponsible personal watercraft operators, they cause problems, they cause accidents, people get hurt. I don't think that's the case here. I think these people do a great job. I will tell you that I am a 32-year retired police officer, and I spent 5 years with the Department of Safety in New Hampshire as a Marine Patrol officer. I've seen it, and I wish we had this type of operation in New Hampshire, where the personal watercraft operators were supervised. They could go out there and enjoy the lake and not get injured. I think this is a great operation, and I look forward to seeing them on the lake. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Marcus Gonzalez.
How's it going, Council? My name is Marcus Gonzalez, 336 Blue Heron Drive. So just so I have clarity and I can understand, I guess I'm a little caught off guard with Ms. Matheny here and putting this at another time. We kind of came in here with the understanding that we were going to talk about the contract that we receive with our rebuttal to it. So can I get some understanding of how that's actually going to go? Because I feel like I'm kind of out of place with the intention that I came in here with.
Well, we haven't got to that point yet. You got 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, cool. So I understand. So I'm one of the owners of Recreational Water Sports. We've been doing this business for around 2 years now. Thankfully, throughout the course of our business, we've done an incredible job of ensuring that when people go out into the water, that they're guided out there safely. We've taken a lot of expense on our part through the business. We've actually haven't even made money with the business yet because we put safety first. We want to make sure that everybody goes out there, they feel confident, they feel comfortable. We require that everybody has the correct certifications before they go out there, which is unlike a lot of companies. And there's a lot of issues down there that we've brought up throughout the course of our interaction here with Stephanie and Leslie through this RFP about the lawlessness down at the lakefront as it is. There's actually no supervision down there. People are doing the wrong things in the wrong area. For instance, we see it all the time where there's people down in the marina that are going to get hurt because there's just no supervision with jet skiers out there right now. So there's a common, I guess, maybe theme, which is kind of why this was brought up in the first place, about people being reckless, and we've been grouped into that case, which is just totally opposite from the truth. We guide all of our people down there. We give them tutorial. We make sure they have the correct certifications. We escort them out of the channel, always at idle speed, doing the correct things. And we allow them to operate within an area of buoys that we put out as well, so they're not just scattered across the lake. Our people are doing the right thing all the time. It's very important. I know Mr. Gilbert here brought up the insurance. The insurance to do this jet ski business is incredibly costly. So our margin for error is minimal. One accident could literally put us out of business. So safety is our #1 priority. And we escort them back in as well. So we've just done this process with the RFP, and we've came up with a plan throughout the process. And that's more or less what I wanted to talk about today, because it seems like to me things were maybe discarded throughout our plan that we've created, and we want to speak a little bit more on that, and hopefully we get the opportunity to do so. But that's what I have to say for now.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Brian Reinhardt, are you wanting to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Am I allowed to speak on this topic?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I wrote something for it. Good evening, Council. Ms. Matheny, Colby, Mayor Blackwell, Mr. Fletcher, and Mr. Gilbert, congratulations on getting your seats. Before I start, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask for a little more time. There's a lot of things I would like to talk about this RFP process that's been going on the last 8 months. In the last 8 months, I've been barred from talking to council due to this process that was only supposed to take 90 days. So I would ask for more time.
We'll move on. I'll let you know
All right.
if you're going to get more time.
So it's been a while since we've been back here. July 21st, 2022 workshop, which was about 266 days ago. We discussed the idea of having a jet ski and boat rental business and daily sunset cruise business down at the lakefront. The council then all agreed how this would be a huge asset to the city to not only drive business to our downtown area, but to give residents something fun and exciting to do in our city. Council then recommended to do a franchise agreement, which to him said it would give the franchisees certain opportunity that them and only them would be able to do. So the city all came to consensus to go to a franchise agreement. So on August 12th, 2022, the RFP was put on vendor link and released to the public with a due date for submittals no later than 9/15/2022, or the submittal would not be accepted. So we submitted our proposal on time and before the deadline. So it wasn't until November 2nd before we heard anything. Granted, we did have a hurricane the month prior, so we did understand the wait. November 2nd, an email was sent out to the bidders that there would be an evaluation committee on November 3rd, which at that meeting, the committee decided to move forward with both bidders to negotiations for franchise agreements. So after a month went by without hearing anything from procurement, we made a call in and received an email saying that if we had any questions about this RFP, to email them to the purchasing department. So on December 7th, I sent the purchasing department an email asking about the 4.23 section of the RFP, which is labeled as award. States the City of St. Cloud Procurement Services will be present, will present the selected firm to the City Council for approval or rejection of all or some categories of submittals within 90 days. Today is 120 days past that day. Being the 90 days is done on December 13th, and we haven't started negotiation, what happens after the 90 days are up? I was then responded with the email stating the evaluation consensus decision was to make a recommendation to City Council to negotiate with both of the proposers and have been under review to negotiate under the review and is tentatively on the agenda for January 12th, 2023 City Council meeting. If this item is approved by City Council to negotiate with both proposers, we will move forward. Council, was this ever brought to you guys in January? No, all right, sorry. Well, January 11th came around and we still haven't heard anything. So again, we did the only thing we were told we were able to do, and that was email the procurement office again, asking why this deadline was not met and when can we start negotiation as this RFP agreement is detrimental to our business. We were then responded with the city has completed its review of submittals and staff would like to start negotiations on January 18th. So we went into our meeting with the Director of Parks and Rec, Stephanie Holcamp, and the Procurement Office, Leslie. In our discussion, we talked about our proposal in the riffraff area where the sandbags were and how we suggested that would be provided. We suggested that we provided sand and a ramp to ensure safety for us and our customers. And we responded with a no, that the city had no intentions on providing anything that would cost them money. That's when Stephanie brought up the beach area and how it might be a good idea to put us on the far side of the beach where the master plan has approved jet ski area. We thought this was a great idea for both the residents of St. Cloud, seeing it gets us off the ADA ramp and from clogging up the boat ramp from the residents. Stephanie said she would bring it up to the city attorney and risk management and get back with us the next meeting.
Let me ask, how much more time do you need?
3 minutes.
Come on, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Hit the highlights. We don't need all the history.
All right.
We need to know what you're asking for.
What we were asking for is the agreement, the contract that was put forward. It was for, the city wanted us to pay $200 a month plus all the slip costs, plus upping our insurance. It would be another $5 or $6K a year on our insurance. We would have to pay. However, one of these people here can start their jet ski business, go down to the boat ramp and do it all and not have to pay the city, not have to up their insurance, and do not have to follow the rules and regulations.
That's right.
So how is that? I'm just trying to see if that makes sense. It's not a franchise agreement if there's other people able to come do it and there's no one able to stop them. And then we asked if we asked the city, because the beach was a good idea, to do it on the far side where the jet ski area was. And we were told we can't do that because it's a swim area. So I did my research and I called FWC, come to find out, St. Cloud has no designated swim areas. The signs we put there, no watercraft allowed, FWC responded by email saying those signs are illegal, they will be coming to take them down. So St. Cloud, as of right now, you can have 150 boats up on the beach and nothing can be done about it because there is no ordinance guiding what a swim area is here, and we haven't gone through the proper channels. So what we're asking is that the ordinance be made so we have a swim area for residents that's buoyed off, and an area to where the jet ski area was, buoyed off, so that way we can come in and out without invading or so we can coexist with swimmers.
And so are you also asking for exclusivity?
Exclusivity, yes, sir. That was the most important part of the
Right.
agreement, because the city didn't want 4 or 5, 6 businesses coming down to the boat ramp, and now there's no place for residents to park their stuff. You have 20 jet skis on the ramp plus a big boat, the residents aren't going to be able to park or to dock their boat or go eat at Krabby Bill's. So without the exclusivity, the agreement really is I'm doing business there now, but so can everybody else. So I'm just asking, does it make sense to do an agreement without exclusivity? What would stop other people or other businesses? I know we can't stop every John Doe out there.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Mazeris, I see your light's on here.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify one point. Before you is a franchise agreement to use the public property. The lake is not the public property. What happens on the lake, the city has minimal control over. The franchise agreement that was presented to you was to use basically the shorefront, the lake, the dirt, to operate their business. As Mr. Reinhardt just said, he's currently operating his business now. That is not permitted. It's not under the city code. You're not allowed to use public property for profit. That's what he's doing right now. This franchise agreement would allow him to set up his concession on the public property and operate the business that he's doing. From an exclusivity perspective, there's virtually no way that the city can regulate individuals that are bringing wave runners or jet skis to the lake, from launching them at the boat ramp and using them, whether they're using them for personal use or whether they're renting somebody else's to do that without the city's knowledge and being able to do that. What we can regulate is they can't set up shop on the lakefront, put up signs, put up tents, receive customers, and charge to rent their wave runners on the lakefront. That's what this franchise agreement would authorize this entity to do.
All right. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, I don't have anything against the businesses. I think they have good businesses. It's the contract that I don't like. And I think you're bringing up a lot of points that I think it's confusing. The first time I saw the contracts is Friday when the agenda came out. Because you asked the question, had we
Correct.
seen
That's
them?
the first time we've seen it too. Actually, Thursday, I saw it.
Right.
But
So I don't have anything against the businesses. It's more just the details of it. I don't feel like there's enough detail. I just don't think there's enough detail, especially like in some of the language it says, you can have an area to have a tent. Well, what's the details of that? What does a tent look like? How big is it? It's like then one of the contracts says, well, they can have an area where people wait, but it's not designated. Don't know where it is. Don't know what it looks like. I just don't feel like there's enough detail. Nothing against their businesses. I haven't ever heard anything bad about your business or the other business. Everybody loves it. The nighttime, it's just taxpayer dollars using our, that's where I get the struggle.
Mr. Mazeris.
And maybe I can add a little bit more background and detail on the way this agreement was drafted. The agreement before you, both of these agreements before you, have 1-year terms with 30-day cancellation periods in them. When staff approached us about putting together an agreement, we discussed it with staff. And because this was essentially a new venture for the city, this agreement is written a little differently than other agreements. It, again, as I said, it has a 1-year term in it. That would mean that if 1 year went by and things needed to be changed, it would be easily changed to be able to do it. But conversely, if the city council decided that having a rental watercraft business or boat business at the lakefront was not what the city wanted, the agreement could go away. The other provisions that are in this agreement kind of go to what Councilwoman Matheny was saying. It gives the city manager the ability to address some of these day-to-day issues. the type of tent that would be there, the signage that would be there, where the location of those areas. It gives her ability to do that, working with the Parks and Recreation Director and working with with either vendor to make sure that their business operation is getting what they need to do business, as well as make sure that the city is regulating the public health, safety, and welfare issues that the city needs to do at the lakefront. So it does have those built-in flexibility to address these issues because, again, we were trying to write an agreement based on an operation that doesn't exist currently within the city, a franchise agreement at the lakefront for either of these services. So there are those abilities in there. It was intended that as it moved forward, if things needed to be adjusted, the city manager would have a certain amount of flexibility to do that, and to address the daily operation, and so that's to kind of get to some of the issues that Councilwoman Matheny brought up.
Councilmember Urban.
Thank you. So to Mr. Manzares' point, I was okay with the agreement because of the city manager's abilities to address those issues. Didn't I see that either party could terminate the agreement within a 30 days notice as well? So if there were any major issues like that, then the city could terminate the agreement. But I was surprised when I got the agenda Friday to see that the jet ski company did not agree to the terms that the city had brought up, and maybe I would hope that could be worked out. But I have witnessed and experienced both the jet ski company and the riverboat company, and I think they're very responsible businesses, very safe, and without some sort of guidelines and regulations like we're putting forth here. It could be just a free-for-all, the lakefront with businesses like it has been in certain ways. So I was personally okay with this agreement, but of course we can continue to discuss here.
Mr. Mayor?
I certainly understand your frustration, especially it's been such a long negotiation. Hopefully this thing, we assumed this thing would have been resolved a long time ago. And so I can understand your thinking, you know, if this thing goes back to working out more details, it's going to be more and more months while other people are actually going down and renting out skis, jet skis under the table, I guess you'd say. What I love about you guys, you from what I know, and is that you operated on a professional basis. You're doing it safely as anything could be done. I like all the things that I hear. The only thing I don't like is exclusivity. I don't know how we can give that to you. How are you going to enforce that? Are we going to start arresting everybody that comes down and, well, I've rented my stuff online, and you find out, yeah, that would just, for me, that would be a nightmare. What we're doing, nobody else can set up a tent and can set up a sign, and I was certainly in favor of it. When the city has the opportunity to work out details with you, most of our staff are pretty reasonable, and I'd love to see let's move forward and just give you the opportunity to move forward, and let's see if we can work out any other problems or challenges that come forward, and I encourage you to reconsider that. Councilmember Fletcher.
I think what you guys are trying to do is actually great. Like, I support the business. I'd love to see the jet skis down there. You guys are doing the right thing. You're going through the process, trying to come to an agreement. And I do understand the frustration, too, of wanting the exclusivity, right? Somebody can just go online, rent a jet ski, meet the person, as long as money's not exchanged on city property. That's the challenge. There's really no way to enforce that. But in some ways, you kind of are getting exclusivity by being able to set up, your thing. Like, you could walk up and rent a jet ski, whereas really nobody else is going to have the ability to do that.
Legally.
Right.
Legally.
And I don't think that there's any way that we could draft it to do that, because I was also shocked too when I got my agenda packet that you didn't agree to what was there. And I would like to hear a little bit more about that, but obviously not the exclusivity part. Like, what was some of the other stuff? I know that you mentioned some of them.
Correct. So for the last 4 months, we've been negotiating. we came to, in our March 1st meeting, we came to an agreement that we were going to have a totally different area. None of this in this contract was ever negotiated with us, ever. They took our negotiations on what we agreed upon, and they took them and they basically threw them away. When we seen this contract come, we were shocked because that's not what we had all agreed upon on our last negotiating meeting. We were supposed to be set up to the left side of the boat ramp where the sandbag areas were, where we were going to be able to purchase, we were told we were able to purchase our own ADA ramp that you can roll up. It's called a roll and lock ramp, and put it over so people can load and unload safely from the sandbag areas, while also getting rid of the problem that we have down there. You have a bunch of people that hang out over there, 20, 30 jet skis at a time, all partying and drinking right there, but we would occupy that area so those people couldn't do that anymore. And it's not residents that are doing it. The people, most of the people that go down here are coming from other cities, other counties. They're not, it's not our residents that are using this area or disobeying the rules.
And I also understand your frustration too. So like procurement, right, and the attorney can guide me, is we're not allowed to talk and we can't talk to you. So like this is kind of, you know, they have to, staff has to do their thing, bring it to us. Speaking to Councilwoman Matheny, if you're not in agreement, I kind of, you know, with what is here, I don't think it's ready for us to necessarily move forward at this moment. I think you guys are going to have to, you know, kind of go back to the table and see if you can come to an agreement.
Well, that's the thing. We thought we were in agreement. We were told by procurement that we agreed on this.
But are you agreeing to what you've received in the packet now?
I just received that 7 days ago, and that was nothing to do with what we were being told. Hey, look, you're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. This is what's approved. This is what we're bringing to council. That's what we were being told. This is what's bringing. What we got and what you guys have is nothing for the last 4 months. This is what we had in July. We were told that we were able to get this area, so that's why we're here shocked, because we don't know what this is. We barely get to look at it because that was nothing we've been talking about over the course of 4 months. So that's the reason why I'm asking. And the reason why we didn't want to use the ADA ramp, one, because we don't want to block other residents from using it. They put time limits on, and it damages damages the skis. But the biggest thing is residents. You start getting in their way. We don't want to do that. We want to kind of get out of their way. So that's why we had agreed upon the sandbag. That was March 1st. So as you can see, we were shocked. We didn't know what they were putting was never talked about with us ever.
Okay. And then I just had one quick question. Have we had any? Obviously, they're operating under a special thing because they need to come into compliance, right? Have we had any issues? Do we know if the PD's had issues out there?
With this particular group?
Relating to this, right?
I don't think we haven't been advised of anything.
Okay. All right, those are all the questions that I have.
And Mayor, quickly, I would ask everybody to remember there's a huge distinction between what you're being asked to do now as it relates to any other activity on the lake. And it all goes back to the liability issue. If you approve this franchise agreement, what you are doing is the city now is participating in a business venture that is a high-risk venture, right? So if there is an incident that happens on the lakefront, if someone falls off as they're trying to get on a jet ski or a wave runner, hurts themselves because they're walking on shaky ground or something like that, because the city granted a franchise agreement, I can guarantee you one thing, that lawsuit, the city will be named as a defendant in that lawsuit. So when we looked at this agreement and we looked at this operation, we have to look at it from the risk management perspective. This is different than somebody who rents, like the mayor used the words, under the table. If somebody rents under the table and they go crazy on a wave runner and they run around the lake and they cause an accident, the city has no exposure in that instance. In this instance, because we are proactively involved in a franchise agreement to allow rentals of these personal watercraft, we are now increasing the exposure for the city, which is why a lot of the provisions have been placed in this agreement to deal with that, and the limitation on where they could load and where they could unload it and how they're going to operate the vehicle, the personal watercraft are put in there. And that has to be the preeminent, frank, consideration of the city. It doesn't have anything to do with this business, folks. It has to do with the liability that the exposure to the city as a whole and to the taxpayers. And that's why there's a lot of this in there. And that's why some of the things that they wanted to be able to do, it ended up not being in this agreement.
Councilmember Urban.
Are we able to, because it sounds like there are still areas of disagreement or areas that need to be worked out, are we able to continue this item and let the applicant and staff work on this and come back to us at a future meeting? Or?
Oh, you certainly can do that, but I think from staff's perspective, we would need some direction on this because frankly, staff's recommendation is what's in front of you. And from a liability perspective, we think this, at this stage, is the safest way to address this additional venture for the city as a whole, as relates to item S. And I know that Councilmember Gilbert talked about item T. All my understanding, the vendor in item T is willing to sign off on that agreement. So we're talking about item S here.
Councilmember Fletcher.
So there was some, and I'm just curious, and I probably should ask this in the agenda review. It was said that, you know, in the lakefront master plan, there is an area on that plan for jet skis. Is that true?
That's my understanding, yes.
So my question is if that's away from where they're operating now, why wouldn't we try to put them in the area in which we said to put them to begin with?
I could ask Ms. Holtcamp to come up and explain why they changed locations. I wasn't a part of that discussion. But in the meantime, I would like to address the timing. I would like to also remind the council that when we put this RFP out, we were then immediately hit by 2 hurricanes and a flood of all of our departments. The procurement department was tasked with quite a bit more of contracts and working with staff and trying to help us keep up with everything.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Stephanie Holtcamp, Parks and Recreation Director again. So on the lakefront master plan, there is an area that was approved in that master plan to the east side of the beach by the parking lot on the east end of town. There would have to be considerable modifications done to that area. I mean, it just wasn't we were going to park jet skis on the beach. I mean, there was docking, there was ramps, all of that. So all of that, you know, would be put into place before. That was the thought behind it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Fletcher, your light's still on?
Mr. Mayor, can I make some comments real quick? I'll be swift with it.
You make it swift, okay?
Beautiful. So, Ms. Matheny, to answer your point earlier about how this agreement you looked at, it doesn't look like there's anything in there particular about what it is we want to do, and that's a great point. And the reason being is because over the course of the last 4 months, we met up on 3 separate occasions that maybe took us 6 hours in total, and we worked through all the fine details within that time period. And our understanding, like Brian had mentioned earlier, is when we left that last meeting, I even asked myself, are the things that we discussed now, are they going to be presented to City Council? And we were told yes, that's what was going to be presented to you guys. So there was a well-articulated plan of how we were going to operate within that agreement. And then like Brian had mentioned, we were just completely shocked to find 7 days before that the things we've talked about for the past 4 months are actually non-existent. They're not even in there, which is why you're looking at this plan and saying, why vote on it now? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, we're in agreement with you. So if you guys would like, we've actually came with a plan of what we would like to do on the beach. And I think that would help you guys get direction on moving forward if that's something that we can do or not. So I can share that with you guys so you can have an idea of what it is we'd like to accomplish.
The argument you're making reinforces the argument that Ms. Matheny made. For us to try and negotiate that here, we could be here for hours. It doesn't make sense. That is the job of staff to bring back those recommendations. And so the argument you guys are making are, in my opinion, reinforcing the very thing. It needs to go back to them and bring it back next month. I'm sorry it's been delayed. I want you guys to operate. You guys do a great job. But for us to try and negotiate all that here, if you couldn't get it done in 6 weeks with them, and then you'd have, I'm not in favor of having a long negotiation here with this.
I mean, I'm in agreement with you.
Me here.
I mean, no disrespect to staff, Mr. Blackwell, but
understand.
the thing is we've worked with them for the past 4 months, and everything that we've discussed over that time period wasn't presented to you guys today. It was it 7 days ago. So I'm just questioning us going back and going through that process again and going through the rigmarole. Are we going to have a different outcome this time?
Why is it different? Like, what is the reason it's different? Like, they seen something and then it was I'm sure it was communicated to them that there was changes made that are different between then and now.
No.
So if I could, sorry, I turned that off. Because this was a procurement process, this isn't like a land development code change where we bring forward proposals. On a regular basis, staff reviews the proposals for the work that the city wants. We review them, we negotiate, and we bring you forward an agreement that staff can support. So that's why what you have today is not something we don't typically negotiate up here. If you don't like it, then typically you either support staff or maybe there's a condition that's changed, but staff has disputed most of the items that I know that they would like to do to me, and perhaps they haven't come up tonight to talk about them, but like you said, that's not the way the procurement process works. Okay. Procurement process is we bring you a contract that we can support, and that is what we did tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Panzeras.
Yeah, just to point out, most of the changes from what was talked about during the negotiation were purely directed towards liability issues. Most of that I was hearing. You've heard about the sandbag area. It was determined that that is a liability issue for the city to allow basically users of these things to traverse a sandbag area. That's meant to protect erosion. It's not meant as a docking area or a walk pathway. There's been other discussions, just to get into, about how they're going to load these, and how they're going to put their vendors onto this watercraft to do that. The agreement includes a provision in there that their watercraft will be stored and kept in boat slips that they will rent, and then when it's ready for their passengers to use them, they will, an employee who's trained will take the wave runner or jet ski from the boat slip to the loading area to load up. That wasn't part of what they want. That was, again, an example of one that was done for pure liability perspective so that it could be addressed. So there were issues related to fueling and those kind of issues, and signage and that was put in place to deal with that, all of which were done for pure liability protection for the city. Again, I cannot stress to you enough that the reason why we have to do this is because of the additional exposure for this provision of this services for a for-profit entity using public property. And that's exposure to the city. Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, if there's an accident involving this business, the city will be sued. And that's the one thing that's our charge to protect the city when it comes to that. So a lot of the changes that they thought may have been appropriate at the lower staff level, when it came up to management, it came through our office, we suggested and said from a liability perspective, and talking with the city's insurance carrier, that those issues couldn't be put into this agreement.
I appreciate the clarification, and I know this, the procurement process, with the laws and everything, as far as, who can talk to who and when and all that stuff. So I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
If we approved this item tonight, and they want to bring back things that they feel should be modified, do they not have the right to do that?
Absolutely, sir.
I would recommend, my personal recommendation, I don't know how the rest of council is, I'd recommend you accept this proposal, and then if you got things you want to bring back to the council, you have the right to do that then. But to negotiate it tonight, I don't think you're going to win.
I mean, I agree with you, Mr. Blackwell. This is not the forum to negotiate this, because this took us, again, over a 4-month period. So I'm in agreement with you. It's just, unfortunately, it seems like we'll be pigeonholed into doing that. But I can tell you is that from an operational standpoint, for this business to even operate or exist in the first place, because obviously we have to make money, right? The contract we have right now, which we expressed to Stephanie, doesn't allow our business to succeed nor help the residents or anybody else coming in. We're signing away our own fate. You know what I mean? It's like our death bill here for us to sign this. And we expressed those concerns over the meetings, which is why we articulated a plan that would be conducive to not only the city succeeding, but us succeeding as well. And that's just absent from the contract that you and I were both presented. So I guess what can we do? I mean, we accept the contract and then we come back at another meeting and then we explain the changes that we want. I mean, what happens next?
Candace, you have the opportunity to do that.
Well, again, I remind you, there is some flexibility built into the operation of the system that the city manager will has an ability to adjust after today or after future. I'd also remind the council of two things. Number one, they are operating right now. So without any interference or any from the city related to this. Secondly, even though they went through the RFP process, the city always has the right not to award a contract through the RFP process. What frankly is frustrating is there seems to be an entitlement to use the public property for a for-profit entity. And that essentially is contrary to the law related to the use of public property. The public property is taxpayer property that is available to everybody to use with restrictions. So this agreement is put in there to be consistent with that essentially that theory of the use of public property. But again, the city manager has ability to adjust the operational specs for this moving forward.
Do we have any other input from the council?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of this contract.
Item S.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll accept it. Yeah.
We'll accept it. Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion for the approval of item S.
And that's with the amended exhibit. It just
That is
includes
correct.
the statutory definition of personal water.
That is correct.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
No, I don't feel like the contract's ready.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, guys.
And Mr. Gilbert, did you want to discuss T also since you called it, or is?
I'm good.
Okay.
And thank you all very much. We love having that operation here.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to any other item on the agenda?
The consent agenda.
Councilmember Matheny.
Remember, I asked for a separate vote on S&T.
Oh, and T? Could I entertain a motion for the adoption of item T?
Motion to approve item T.
Motion from Councilmember Urban. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Fletcher. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
No, I don't feel the contract's ready.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Carries. Could I entertain a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda minus items T and S?
And
Wait a
E.
second. Wait a second.
And you.
What do you want to do?
E and
They
you.
want to speak? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Richard Lawrence, are you wanting to speak to item T after we've already approved it? Huh?
Smart man.
I don't think I would. That's a smart.
Smart man.
All right. Could I entertain a motion for the adoption of our consent agenda?
I'll make a
Remaining
mo-
consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining items. We moved E and U to different meetings, and S&T were already voted on.
Right.
Second.
A second from Councilmember Gilbert, motion from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item on our agenda are public hearings. Madam Clerk, you please read item number 1.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2023-03, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending Article 3, zoning regulations, Division 26, architectural standards, providing for applicability and effects, suburbility, Scribner's error, conflict, codification, and effective date.
Good evening, Council Member, Mayor, Dagmar Segarra, Planning Manager. This is the second reading of the architectural design standard that we presented to you back in February. After the approval of the first reading, you directed staff to work with the builders community to make some adjustment and clarifications to the proposed ordinance. Since then, we've been meeting with different members of the builders community, including GOBA, which is the Greater Orlando Builders Association, and we came to as close as agreements as we would expect. And this presentation is going to highlight the main changes that we have made and negotiated through those discussions. One of the biggest ticket items was the applicability of the ordinance. We proposed change to make clarifications of what type of applications would apply this ordinance. In further discussion with our city attorney and other members of the Buildings Association, we are presenting a final draft of the applicability that will clearly state that this amendment, this ordinance will apply to new developments that has achieved approval of a preliminary subdivision plan or preliminary master plan prior to July 1st of this year. So if any developer that are currently right now under review with a preliminary master plan or preliminary subdivision plan, they must obtain final approval on or prior July 1st of this year. In addition, we make clarifications that these do not apply to redevelopments or to single-family lots, individual lots, only on applications that will require subdivision process. And I brought, for record, the final language for the applicability that we are proposing, which we would like to include it at the end with the proposed motion. All right, so that's applicability. The second was to make recommendations in regards to who regulates this and who has the final authority making determinations on this ordinance. So we added language establishing the DRC, which is our Development Review Committee, to be the board, acting board as the Architectural Design Standard Board, which is a staff, is established staff committee. So any change, all of the architectural design standards are going to be reviewed by staff and approved by staff. But as you know, preliminary subdivision plans and preliminary master plans are also being approved by City Council. So City Council is still going to have an opportunity to make comments in regards to the elevations at the time of the preliminary subdivision plan. But the DRC committee will be the approving board of the standards at the time of the preliminary subdivision plan. In addition, if there are any, the ordinance has language that allows a developer to propose innovative designs, something different. This gives us the ability to get creative. And the language that has been incorporated into the code, into the ordinance, is that the city manager or designee can make those decisions prior or after the approval of the preliminary subdivision plan. If it's determined that the changes or what they're proposing really is an innovative product, that will give the ability for staff to approve that design. Another clarification, a lot of the comments that we received back in February is that these standards were targeted most, that even though it was going to be applied to all different types of products, a lot of the illustrations and proposed language was directed to townhomes. So we worked the language to propose different parameters in regards to technical language, such as models. As we know, when we're talking about models in a single-family residence, it does not constitute the same definition of a model on a townhome. So we added a clarification with the treatment, with a variety between units of a duplex and just between duplexes and building as a whole. In that way, we don't have one elevation for one side of the duplex and a different elevation for the other side. So we made a very, very distinct clarification in regards to that different elevations. In regards to the building orientation, we established language that addresses specifically for single-family residents. In the previous proposal in February, it only spoke in terms to townhomes, and there was no illustration provided for single-family residents. So in this occasion, we added those illustrations, and we added examples, and we added a specific language for pertaining single-family residents. In regards to the garages and driveways, one of the discussions and comments that we got from the Builders Association is that we were incorporating some language that it really is geared towards engineering standards, and that they already have regulations in regards to driveways and sort of things. So those things, we removed them from the code, and we propose language that is clear what is the objective with what the intent of the city in regards to garages, which is pretty much what we want to achieve, is to avoid greater than 50% of a garage in a front facade. And if you're going to do a big garage, you have other alternatives to do so, either on the back of the building or on the side of the building. So we provided language that gives alternatives if they want to do those big garages as well. The massing and composition, there was comments in regards that there was a language that it was ambiguous or too open for interpretation. What does it mean, visible from street? What does it mean, if it's perceived? So we decided to provide language either to just remove those terms of visible to street and just enforce our intent on those sections and make it clear what is the intent of the section. And based on the intent, staff can make a determination as well of what this really means. We struck the accessory structure language from this ordinance because the Orlando Development Code already has a section in our code that speaks strictly about architectural design standards on accessory structure. So we're going to be, we are in the process right now of revamping our entire land development code, and you're going to see in the near future amendments to different sections of the code, which would include language about the accessory structures and enforcing these accessory structures in the architectural design standards. But we're in the appropriate section of the code where they belong. In regards to the windows and doors, we made some allowances based on the feedback that we had from the community, the buildings community, and we agreed to reduce the percentage on the front primary facade of windows, doors, and openings from 20% to 15%. And we eliminated all languages that refers to vertical windows. What does that mean is that they can still do their vertical windows, but there's no specific percentage or the design standards that limits that window. They just have to make sure that it is all balanced, which is in the intent of that fenestration section of the code, and that it is those openings, the percentages are met per the facade. In regards to roof, we had again comments with that has to do with the requirements from the engineering standard and the building code, which remove those terms. And also we clarify about the visible from street or public realm. So those were the key components for this section. In regards to the materials, so one of the bigger feedback that we obtained from the builders community is that the requirements for the materials for single-family residents. So what we did is that we concentrate the minimum material standards to be for townhomes. In the single-family residence, we are telling them you have to provide 3 different materials. How they do that is at their discretion. In the townhomes, we get specific on percentages. So that's the biggest change when it comes to the materials. So that gives the flexibility. We still get our different materials in our single-family residence, but then we get the real look that we want on the townhomes. We thought that was a good compromise. And then the miscellaneous section didn't change. We didn't propose any changes to any of the miscellaneous items. And the same with the storage. We didn't provide any changes to that. As we stated before, this meets the growth management criteria. It is staff recommendation to approve ordinance 2023-033 with the amended applicability language that's been provided to you this evening. This concludes my presentation. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
We'll receive public comment at this time. David Woods.
Thank you. David Woods, 3113 4th Street, St. Cloud, resident for 33 years. So I got the packet. I was reading through it. It sounds really nice. Some of these changes are going to really enhance some of the properties and future growth. In reference to why I'm here, though, is if you adopt these standards, will they take effect for the Heritage Crossing plan development that's coming up on your agenda on the 18th and the 27th? Will this change their front-loading and rear-loading designs for what they're proposing for that development? I just wanted to know if this is going to change it or maybe postpone their first reading because these changes might affect that developer.
No, it will not.
Who said that? Oh.
No, it will not.
Okay, so, but I thought I heard her say anything before July 1st has to do with a new architectural design.
I can let, I can, if the mayor would allow, I can ask.
So anything after
Oh, after
July 1st.
So they're like grandfathered in then?
Yes.
So to speak. All right, thank you.
Heather Isaacs.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name's Heather Isaacs. My address is 2600 Lake Lucian Drive, Maitland, Florida, 32751. I'm the Vice President of Land Development for Taylor Morrison, and I spoke at the first hearing, and I appreciate that staff has made revisions to the ordinance. I think that those are some great compromises. I do still have some concerns over just the cost in general and how that is how that's going to support the city's initiatives in their housing element for providing a variety of housing for people of different income levels. I've found 7 different housing policies that this seems to be in conflict with. One of the first policies is policy H1.1.1. City shall continue to provide adequate land design for residential land uses in a wide variety of housing types and process to meet the needs of the existing and projected residents, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, marital status, ancestry, national origin, ethnic background, creed, age, status with regard to public assistance, or income level. I think that a lot of the things in this ordinance are going to drive housing costs up. You're going to lose the opportunity for a lot of first-time home buyers that are maybe in the missing middle section to be able to purchase a townhome. Some of the standards require any townhomes that are less than 40 feet have to be rear-loaded or have accessory parking somewhere else. And I think that just drives up the cost of townhomes. The city shall, this is policy H1.3.3, the city shall continue to support innovative, affordable, and attainable housing projects that serve a mixture of income groups, provide on-site amenities, and demonstrate design concepts that provide cost savings without compromising the quality of the development. The city shall encourage and support homeownership for first-time extremely low, very low, low and moderate income home buyers. I don't see how you're going to be able to serve that need with this ordinance being required for all new development. There's additional policies. Again, I appreciate what the city's trying to do. I think that the staff has done a good job in trying to work with the community. I just think that the city's, going to be thinking about this again in several years when there's a real attainable housing crisis here and there's an affordable housing crisis here because people can't buy new homes that are at, school teachers, firemen, police officers. They won't be able to purchase new homes because the cost is going to be driven up by these standards. Thank you for your time.
Councilmember Thiene.
So I wanted to thank Dagmary specifically for working through all of the comments from all of the different people that, I appreciate the changes that you made and some of the changes you didn't make. I appreciate that too. I had my conversations with folks and I said, I'm looking out for the city of St. Cloud. I mean, that's my goal. So I think that she did a really good job at weaving through all of that, and I'll make a motion for approval.
Wait, do you have more comment?
We have more public comment. I thought you wanted to comment on what was being there.
So hold on her motion.
If you'll hold on that motion, please. Lee Steinhauer. I'm sorry.
Hurry up, you guys are ready to vote. Lee Steinhauer with the Greater Orlando Builders Association, 1953 Clayton Heritage Way in Maitland. First of all, I want to thank all of you for hearing some of the concerns that the building industry had, and I know we met with all of you and shared some of those concerns, and your staff is top-notch, fantastic, some of the best in the business. I think we came to a very reasonable place. I think our goal was to make this ordinance work for both sides. And some of it was just clarification on intent, trying to see where you wanted to go, make sure that we both kind of were on the same page. Obviously, there's things that are still in it. I mean, Heather brought up from a cost perspective that we would like to see maybe down the road some maybe carve outs for affordable housing. I think would be to your benefit. But by and large, I think most of what you see here tonight is something that is workable for both sides. Will get you the kind of product type that you want here in the city, and something that we would be able to provide to you as an industry, and certainly making sure that projects that are in some stage of approval, they made those investments already, making sure that those folks don't have to make drastic changes, and I think you've done that with your applicability as well. So I'll leave you a little bit of time here and just say thank you for working with us. Really appreciate it, and I think we came to a place where we're all on the same page. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee. Celia Dorn.
Good evening, Celia Dorn, 17 South Orlando, Kissimmee. We really appreciate staff working with us on this. We have 2 additional tweaks that we would like to make to the proposed language that was handed to you tonight on the applicability. And we've discussed this with some staff, obviously not all staff at this point, but the intent, as was explained by Dagmary, was to make sure that if you had any one of those things already approved, your preliminary master plan, your site development plan, or your preliminary subdivision plan, prior to July 1st, that you would be exempt from these requirements. We agree with that. we want to make sure that the language actually matches that intent, and we do have some concerns with how it's currently worded. So I'm going to read into the record Section B with several changes into it, and I'll notate when it's a change just so everyone knows. Applicable approval process. These standards shall be applicable, and instead of to the following, it will read unless. So it now reads, these standards shall be applicable unless preliminary master plan for a plan unit development pursuant to Article 3, Division 11 of the Land Development Code was approved prior to July 1st, 2023 for the development of the uses noted in the previous section. So it removes on or after and instead reads was approved prior to. On number 2, site development plan pursuant to Article 4, Division 2 of the Land Development Code was approved prior to July 1st, 2023 for the development of the uses noted in the previous section. Or preliminary, item 3, preliminary subdivision plans pursuant to Article 5, Division 2 of the Land Development Code was approved prior to July 1st, 2023 for the development of the uses noted in the previous section. So those would be the changes that we would ask, just to make it very clear. I understand what the intent of staff is now. The concern is what might happen in 5 years when someone comes back and reads as it's currently proposed, that they might not understand what that intent was, and we think that this language makes it a little bit clearer that you just need one of the three. So the other item of concern is that it's not specifically called out anywhere that people that already have approvals in the county are exempt from these standards if they meet this. So we would just also like to add a whereas clause at the beginning that states, whereas properties that have previous Osceola County approvals that have been annexed into the city of St. Cloud are exempt from these standards if previous approvals are in conflict. So that's a separate item. My time is up.
Go ahead.
That's really all.
All right.
Those are the items that I have. I'm happy to
Timed it
answer any
perfectly.
questions.
Mr. Manzares, could you help us here?
Sure. Well, 2 comments on that. First, respectfully, Mrs. Dorr, I think your language is simply wordsmithing to a little bit. And remember, of course, that the language related to applicability is really dealing with what happens between now and July 1st. So 5 years down the road, none of this language is going to matter in reality because it's going to be beyond that. So, I mean, we certainly can address it, but I think it's pretty clear how it reads. I do agree, however, that, and Mrs. Miller and I just talked about it earlier, that there does need to be some reference to those projects that are approved in Osceola County within the applicability section. And so what we were going to suggest is that where the reference in B1, 2, and 3, where it references the city's land development code, that we just simply add after that pursuant to Osceola County codes. So anything that receives its preliminary master plan or approval, receives a site development plan approval or a preliminary subdivision plan approval in the city or in Osceola County prior to July 1st would be in there.
If I may address those comments just briefly.
I'll allow you to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason we have some concerns with how it's currently written, and I understand it seems like wordsmithing, but the problem is when you read it as these standards shall be applicable to the following, if someone already has a preliminary master plan approved, so that's already approved, but they come in for a site development plan, which is a brand new application, the concern is because it's a new application and it's after July 1st, even though they have that preliminary subdivision plan already approved, that someone could try and say, well, you're coming in for a different plan now. So now you are held to those standards. So that's why with the slight change in the verbiage, we think it makes it very clear that if you have one of any of the three, that you will be exempt.
No, we would never do that. Mr. Manzares.
I think that's what the phrase "or" means. Is basically means it's one, or. It's not "and" or. It's just "or." So, but it's not. I do think it's wordsmithing. I don't have a strong feeling either way on it all. If the council's okay with that, and, you know, I can live with it.
I told him I liked it.
All right. Well, the city manager has spoken. She likes it.
I try to listen to her. She's much smarter than me, and she remembers everything.
Thank you, council.
Right, Jason?
All right. I've got a bunch of lights on here. First of all, does anyone else in the audience like to speak to this item before we go to the council's concerns? Councilmember Urban, your light's been on for a while.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, first of all, wanted to thank staff for working so hard on everything and working on this between the first and the second reading. I know that there have been a lot of comments and concerns on this, and staff has done a great job. Kind of to Councilmember Matheny's point, I heard a lot from a lot of the builders from out of town about how they weren't happy about this, but every resident I spoke to was thrilled with these standards. And at the end of the day, we work for the residents of the city of St. Cloud, and I heard an overwhelming response of it. They really like these standards. So to the point of, I understand this July 1st is the big date, but I also would hope that anybody coming forward before then would try and put every effort possible to meet these standards as close as possible too, and not just try to rush through to try and get by there. But I do understand that there have already been plans set in motion and money involved in those plans. So, but I just would like to see a good effort to try and meet these standards as close as possible, even if it's not technically required until July 1st. So I don't know if I'm able to second Councilmember Matheny's motion, but I would
I'm not
second.
ready for a motion yet. I'll let you
Okay,
know
I'm
when
sorry.
I am.
I already made one.
Yeah, people want to speak. Mr. Fletcher, Councilmember Fletcher.
I just want to echo the comments. Staff has been amazing as far as these architectural design standards. I do think it will enhance the community. I did have an opportunity to meet with the Builders Association as well and listen to their comments and concerns, and I think we've done a good job of taking their concerns into consideration and addressing them with these standards, and that's all I have to say.
You don't have anything to say? Thank you.
There's a first for everything.
Could you share with us, Ms. Segarra, why the Planning Commission and their thinking on why they're denying this ordinance?
Originally, when this ordinance was presented in front of the city to the Planning Commission, it included language about redevelopment. They didn't agree with that language of the redevelopment. It also included language in regards to applicable, it didn't have language clarifying that it did not apply for single lots, like infill development. So, and they didn't like that. And the third comment was also affordability. They were concerned about the affordability.
Well, I certainly think we're going to have to address the affordability issue in the future because that's a serious issue, and we certainly need to keep that on the plate for the future. Yes, ma'am?
If I may, we are working, this is phase one of the architectural standards. We are working with our consultants to create character areas. We know that the city has very particular areas that we would like to preserve, such as the downtown. So we are working on those character areas. Staff will be willing to propose language in the phase two of this architectural design standards, some sort of language that incentivize products that are affordable. And that's something that we can further discuss.
All right, thank you. Before I ask for a motion, could I just get a clarification on where we have landed on these tweaks that were presented?
What she said.
I will get a copy from.
I think the clerk took notes during that. I got all of them, I think, except for number 3.
So we will make the proposed language will read, instead of saying that is applied to the following, we'll say unless, and instead of saying on or after July 1st in B1, B2, and B3, it will be to prior to, and also add a language on the applicable land uses to include Osceola County
Right.
code.
Okay.
Now,
Councilmember Matheny.
I'll make a motion to approve with the tweaks to the language.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from Councilmember Urban. Madam Clerk, you please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 2 and 3 and 4? I believe they go together, do they not?
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2023-13, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, to annex into the City of St. Cloud approximately 0.94 acres identified as Tahokwa mixed-use development located south of Neptune Road, east of Breezewood Street, north of Cross Prairie Parkway, and west of Tahokwa Boulevard, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Chapter 171.044 Florida statutes. Final public hearing for ordinance number 2023-14, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of mixed use to approximately 0.94 acres identified as Tahokwa mixed-use development located south of Neptune Road, east of Breezewood Street, north of Cross Prairie Parkway, and west of Tahokwa Boulevard, providing for amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation and proof of publications, applicability and effect, suburbilities, copies on files, and effective date. Final public hearing for ordinance number 2023-15, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, providing for the zoning amendment of the zoning map of the Land Development Code of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, specifically changing the zoning designation of approximately 0.94 acres identified as Tahokwa mixed-use development from mixed-use zoning designation county to a mixed-use zoning designation city with a mixed-use future land use designation adopted by ordinance number 2023-14, generally located south of Neptune Road, east of Breezewood Street, north of Cross Prairie Parkway, and west of Tahokwa Boulevard, providing for entering the designation of the official zoning map, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Blackwell. My name is Dagmary Segarra, Planning Manager. So this item is a final or second reading of the annexation of the little enclaves that we have within the Tahokwa Concept Plan. You heard this item back in March 9th, recommended approval, and this is the second reading. The total acreage to be annexed and future land use change and zoning change is approximately 90.94 acres inside. It's located as stated by City Clerk. It is contiguous to the city, adjacent to the city limits. The existing county future land use is mixed use, and the existing county zoning is also mixed use. The proposed future land use and zoning is also mixed use. It's compatible to the surrounding areas, and it has no adverse impacts into city facilities. As you can see in this map, it's the location of all the little enclaves that are within the concept plan of the Tahokwa development. And as you can see, it's surrounded by future land use designation and zoning of mixed use, and it will maintain that same category. It meets the strategic goal of growth management, and it is the recommendation of staff to approve an ordinance number 2023-13, ordinance number 2023-14, and 2023-15. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is here to answer any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak to these items?
Good evening, Celia
You're
Dorn.
the tweaker, right? Yeah.
I'm the tweaker. Celia Dorn, 17 South Orlando Avenue, Kissimmee. The applicant agrees with the staff recommendation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Chief?
Mayor, Council, Jason Miller, Fire Chief. The larger portion that you see there on Breezewood, I would like to thank Tohoku for picking that parcel up for us. They worked with us. That will be part of the future fire station site. Going back in time, almost 2 years now, between trying to develop that fire station property, the county had some concerns about our access and egress onto Neptune Road. Working with Tohoku in a partnership, we were able to secure that corner lot through them, and hopefully in the future soon, we'll have a fire station out there. So I just want to say I support this annexation because that's where a fire station hopefully be planted in the future.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item or items? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. What's the pleasure of the council regarding item number 2, ordinance number 2023-13?
Motion to approve item 2023-13.
We have a motion from Councilmember Urban, a second from the mayor. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
And Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Could I have a motion regarding item number 3, ordinance number 2023-14? Mayor makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Gilbert. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And that brings us to ordinance number 2023-15. Do I have a motion? Mayor
Motion
makes a
approved.
motion. Do I have a second?
Sorry. Second.
Another second, Mr. Gilbert. Motion for the mayor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk brings us to item number 5. Could you please read that into the record?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2023-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of mixed use to approximately 29.48 acres identified as Omni St. Cloud Clay Whaley, located south of Clay Whaley, west of Florida's Turnpike and east of Stagecoach Road, providing for amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation, and proof of publication, applicability and effects, suburbilities, copies on files, and effective date.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Dagmar Segarra, Planning Manager. So this is the first reading for a comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendment for the property located south of Clay Whaley and west of Florida Turnpike. They're seeking comprehensive plan and zoning amendment at approximately 29.48 acres. The proposed future land use is mixed use. The proposed zoning is also mixed use. The development is compatible with the surrounding areas, and there is no adverse impacts onto city facility. So you can see it is within the future land use and zoning of the mixed use. This is within the recently annexed area that the annexation for this item was approved on March 9th. It is also part of the Edgewater concept plan that was annexed into the city back in November. This is the location within the concept plan of the development for this particular project. As it is located in the what we call an NH2 area, which is a neighborhood type 2, which allows for attached residential product. The project proposes is within a neighborhood area, as I stated. It allows for 80% residential use and 5% of public, park, and civic. It allows a density between 5 to 25 dwelling units per acre. It provides two full access points into Clay Whaley. The future connections will be offered on the east and the west of the development to the bottom property boundaries. And in this particular project has already concept plan approved by Osceola County, CS 22-02, and also has a PS, which is number PS 22-038. With this approval, the city staff agrees to also accept the county approvals. Any changes to those approvals, if they are deemed major changes, it will come back to this board for amendment. It means the strategic goal plan growth management, and it is recommendation of staff to approve the comprehensive plan amendment ordinance number 2023-11 and zoning map amendment ordinance number 2023-12. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is here to answer any questions.
Before we go any further, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 6 into the record? I think I overlooked that, did I not?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2023-12, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, providing for the zoning amendment of the zoning map of the Land Development Code of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, specifically changing the zoning designation of approximately 29.48 acres identified as Omni St. Cloud Clay Whaley from mixed-use zoning designation county to mixed-use zoning designation city, with a mixed-use future land use designation adopted by ordinance number 2023-11, generally located south of Clay Whaley, west of Florida's Turnpike, and east of Stagecoach Road, providing for entering the designation on the official zoning map, filing of the Planning Commission recommendation, and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date.
And staff recommends approval of ordinance 2023-12.
Thank you. Is the applicant here would like to speak to this?
Cameron Hindle, 8 Broadway, Kissimmee, Florida, 34741. We agree with staff recommendation, and we are available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to item 5 or 6? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
So this question is for Dagmary. So in the staff report, it mentions that this came before council on March 9th and it died for a lack of a second. So what's changed?
The applicant directed staff, the applicant made some comments at the meeting of the owner wanting to pursue a different concept plan. After the meeting, the applicant met with staff and told staff that they will continue with the approved concept, with the proof from the county.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other discussion from council? Could I entertain the pleasure of the council regarding ordinance number 2023-11, item number 5?
I motion pass.
We have a motion for Councilmember Gilbert. Do I have a second? Have a second from the mayor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Do I have a motion for, or further discussion for item number 6, ordinance number 2023-12? Mayor makes a motion for the adoption. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Urban. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 7 into the record?
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2023-19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending and restating all sections of the city's personal rules and regulations referring here and after as the employee handbook, providing for suburbility, conflict, and effective date.
Good evening, Justin Kleesner, Human Resources Director. We are excited, honestly excited, to bring forward changes to our personnel rules, now known as the Employee Handbook. This document, as you know, has not been revised in over 13 years. Our goals for updating these policies would provide our employees with valuable new benefits and ways to be rewarded, to revise outdated procedures that allow us to operate more efficiently, and to add up-to-date legal compliance items. Before bringing forward this proposal, we completed the negotiation process with each of our unions to find agreement in order to adopt the proposed changes as prescribed under their collective bargaining agreement. Some of the major updates to the proposed handbook include providing a way to compensate our employees and incentivize them to achieve a professional certification that goes above and beyond their normal job requirements, providing up to 24 hours of paid leave for employees to volunteer and positively impact our community, revising funeral leave criteria to provide leave based on the actual family relationship rather than the location of their family member, modifying our acting status process, streamlining our recruitment process to allow departments flexibility to promote their employees, to encourage career growth and development, and incorporating previously approved policies and other legal requirements. I do want to recognize that there's been some questions regarding the city being an at-will employer. Florida is considered an at-will state, meaning that employees may be terminated for any lawful reason unless they're governed by a different term in their collective bargaining agreement. First, I want to say that the city's goal is to never need to terminate an employee. I think that goes without saying. We want to set our employees up for success in meaningful ways so that we can provide high-quality services to our community. Second, there is actually no change to the city's policy of being an at-will employer as proposed in the handbook. It's already our policy in place today. In fact, we've been including similar language in all of our new hire offer letters since before I started at the city. The handbook changes only provide further clarity and transparency for our employees to illustrate what being an at-will employer means. Rest assured that we're still obligated to follow all local, state, and federal laws, especially as it relates to discrimination, among other things. Our progressive discipline guidelines remain in place to provide corrective action and support for the long-term success of our employees. In summary, the proposed changes before you provide meaningful updates to our policies for our employees' benefit. But our work is not done. As we continue to evolve and grow as an organization, we will periodically bring forward smaller, targeted changes to the handbook. We're excited about this long overdue update to our policies. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance, and I'm available with any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Stirk.
I know it's just the first reading, but I'm hoping we're all on board with this, and I just wanted to take just a minute to comment on some of the changes that are proposed. There's some incredible things happening here in our policy handbook that a lot of other cities are not doing. I know that our HR director has worked really hard, and our finance director worked really hard in the past to do the salary study and to increase salaries that way, but there are some specific things in here that are going to retain employees, that are going to provide incentives for employees. So I just brought a little gift basket to show my appreciation. And I wanted to just kind of make a joke about it too, which I'm not that funny, so tolerate me. So there are candles in here for when you're burning the midnight oil, bandages for when things get rough, Vaseline for when you need to get out of a sticky situation, Rolos to remind you to just roll with it, toothpaste to keep your smile bright. Smarties and Nerds are in here because some of our policies incentivize certifications, and so it's important to remember we're going to get a lot more Smarties and a lot more Nerds on our staff from this. There's water bottles to rehydrate for all the blood, sweat, and tears that you guys have put in to getting us this far. And there's sage just in case bad juju comes ever in the future. So I just wanted to leave these with you guys and just let you know that to all of our staff members, we're very thankful for what you're doing.
Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion on a motion by council. Councilmember Gilbert.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Justin and the staff too. Wonderful job. CERT program's perfect. The things you put in place are definitely brought us back up 13 years since it was last discovered. So thank you very much for doing that. And I know it's hard work, but it's well worth it for the staff we have.
Mr. Mayor, just want to remind that burning sage in your office is against the personnel rules. I don't care about the fire code.
All right. Councilmember Fletcher.
I just want to echo the same comments. I had the opportunity to speak to our HR director on some of the questions that I had received, and I think the department has done an outstanding job updating the handbook, and look forward to adopting that. And with that, I make a motion for approval.
We have a motion from Councilmember Fletcher for the adoption of these new policies and regulations and rules. As the mayor, I'd like to make a second as well as comment. A lot of work went into this, and so thank you for all the hard work you did. Appreciate all the staff and Justin for your leadership here. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I have my light on, Mayor.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you.
Forgive
I was
me.
just going to say kudos to you guys for your hard work, and definitely it'll go a long way to help retain good employees.
Thank you once again. I apologize. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll now that Ms. Matheny has had her say-so?
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk, please read item number 8 into the record.
Resolution number 2023-062R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending resolution number 2022-188R, which adopted the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the City of St. Cloud, finding the city manager has certified there are prior year funds balances and or current revenues available in the budget for additional projects and programs and various funds not included in the original budget, requiring the budget to be increased to include said additional fundings in the various funds and making supplemental appropriations within the funds.
Good evening, Jeff Cooper, Interim Finance Director. This is Budget Amendment Number 3, Resolution 2023-062R. This amends the FY 22-23 budget, and we are recommending approval. As background, as you can see, as per City Code, Section 2-212, amendments after adoption. If during the fiscal year the manager certifies that there are available for appropriation revenues in excess of those estimated in the budget, the City Council may by resolution make supplemental appropriation for the year up to the amount of each excess. The City Manager has certified funds are available to appropriate funds. This budget amendment meets the city's strategic plan goal for financial sustainability. For the general fund, it's a $0 increase. We are decreasing your City Council contingency budget by $150,000 and increasing City Council other current charges expenditures by $150,000 for a mediation settlement agreement, which will be covered in a later item. The 1% surcharge fund does have an $800,000 increase. We are decreasing machinery and equipment expenditures by $808,314 and increasing expenditures for intergovernmental transfers for the same amount for transfer funding to the Capital Projects Fund to account for the prior purchase of the Pierce pumper engine. Since the engine will not be received prior to the end of the current fiscal year, the purchase must be accounted for in the Capital Projects Fund. So basically, we prepaid for it because we get a prepayment discount, but due to accounting regulations, we have to account for it in the Capital Projects Fund, which we did not do right off the bat. Okay. Also, as a continuation on that, we do have an emergency purchase for a fire engine, which will also be covered in a later item. So we're increasing the local option use tax revenue by $800,000. Our revenues are increasing substantially recently, and too many ands there. Must have been one of those late night burns. Increase right. Increase expenditures for intergovernmental transfers by $800,000, again to transfer funding to the Capital Projects Fund to account for an immediate need for an additional fire engine. Capital Projects Fund has a $7,438,314 increase. Increased revenue from intergovernmental transfers by $6,908,314, and increase in expenditures for the following projects. Project PS 2305 Pierce Pumper Engine, $808,314 to account for the engine that will be not received by the end of the current fiscal year. Project PS 2306 for the emergency fire engine for $800,000, and for Project PR 2106, the 17th Street ball fields, in the amount of $5,830,000. We're increasing revenue from prior year fund balance by $5,830,000, and increase expenditures for intergovernmental transfers by $5,830,000 for Project PR 2106, 17th Street ball fields in the parks. This is Parks Impact Fee, so it has an increase of $5,830,000. The Mobility Impact Fee Fund increased $260,276. We're increasing revenue from prior year fund balance by $260,276, and increase expenditures for professional services by $260,276 to provide funding for the interlocal agreement with the county to complete the mobility fee update. Just as a note on this item, the original amount when it went through the process was $235,000. Assistant Manager David Tomac since notified me that the amount was different than he had previously quoted to me, so this is a change from what your original paperwork probably had on it. Staff recommendation is approval of Resolution 2023-062R, and the City Council requested action is approval of Resolution number 2023-062R. Any questions?
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Dwayne Norman?
Dwayne Norman, 3551 Buckingham Court. Mayor, Council, I just wanted to thank you and staff for getting the ball fields to this moment. And there's a lot of need in our community, as I'm sure everyone up here and everyone in staff knows, and more need coming. With across the Turnpike and Jones Road and everywhere around us, you know we have thousands of people moving in. And also, I am part of Little League. My son plays in Little League. But that's not all that's going to use these fields. We have adult, as you know, we have adult softball, we have adult baseball, we have kickball. So we appreciate you moving this forward, not just for the kids in Little League, but for all those adults and other travel ball, baseball, travel ball, softball that use those fields and are going to get use out of these new fields. So we appreciate staff getting us to this point. I know it's taken a while and they've worked hard, and we appreciate that. And thank you, every one of you, for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, could I entertain a motion for the adoption of this resolution?
I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a motion from Councilmember Urban. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Gilbert. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. I got a note here, I'm a little confused. It's supposed to be item number 4. Is that a problem?
No, it was moved to item number 1, because it was pulled off of consent agenda.
And so we're changing the numbers of 1, 2, and 3?
It's your call, Mayor, however you want to handle it.
I'm going to do it the other way. Madam Clerk, you please read item number 1, resolution number 2023-078R, because I already had it written the other way.
Resolution number 2023-078R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving the acceptance of the fiscal year 21-22 Resilient Florida Program grant from the state of Florida through the Department of Environmental Protection for the City of St. Cloud citywide vulnerability assessments, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and all other documents associated with the execution of the grant and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jamie DeMello. I'm the Procurement Services Deputy Director. So this resolution is to approve and accept the FY 2022 Resilient Florida Grant Program. We were awarded for the citywide vulnerability assessment and authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement and all the documents associated. So this grant is administered through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the Resilient Grant Program. We received, or we were awarded $200,000 for the planning and development of a capital project list for critical facilities mitigating against flooding risks. So the goal for this funding is to conduct a comprehensive vulnerability assessment to assess inflow and infiltration issues, sanitary sewer overflows, and repetitive loss structures. This will also incorporate a recently performed inflow abatement study and stormwater master plan for the historic grid area. So the end result, or what we're hoping to come out with, is an adaptation plan that will be used to prioritize future projects to mitigate impacts of flooding on the city's critical assets that were identified during the vulnerability assessment. So this funding is not for the actual mitigation, but it will allow us to apply for future funding for grants that do mitigation. So we need this in order to be able to apply for future grants. I'm sorry I didn't advance. No. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2023-078, and City Council requested action would be approval of Resolution 2023-078R.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion on a motion by council. Our city manager, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize Ms. DeMello. She, as she mentioned, is the Deputy Procurement Director. Our grants administrator position has been vacant for a very long time, and she recently stepped up because she used to be the grants director or administrator several years ago, and so she saw the need that we had, stepped in, and she's been helping us really get the grants moving again until we fill the position. So I just wanted to recognize her.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
It's good to have you here. Thanks for stepping up to the plate. Do I have a motion regarding the adoption of resolution number 2023-078R?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Councilmember Fletcher. Do I have a second? The mayor makes a second. Come on, guys. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Could you please item number 2 into the record?
Resolution number 2023-082R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, authorizing the waiver of the formal bidding requirements and approving the negotiated procurement of a fire truck from a vendor deemed the best interest of the city and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jason Miller, Fire Chief, standing before you. This resolution is for the approval of the emergency purchase of a fire engine. As you know, with the current production times running 36-plus months, the fact that our reserve fleet is 16, 17, 23 years old, we've had one involved in an auto accident, so that 16-year-old truck has been pressed into front-run service. And with our opening of the new station in the near future, the temporary station, we're in desperate need for a fire truck. The simple fact is there are a few that are in production that are considered stock trucks that are not exactly up to our specs that we currently run. However, they're close. And for the, by and large, the best bang for the buck that we're looking at right now is to do a purchase of that stock truck. The delay in waiting for a new truck at this point has become extremely problematic. Not saying that, you know, there's not the need in the future to order more trucks. There will be. However, right now we are basically in desperate times for desperate measures. These trucks hit the market and they're gone within days, long before I have a chance to even come talk to you guys about them. What this resolution does is it gives, between procurement and the city manager, the authority to, once these trucks come available, if we see one that will meet our needs, we can act instantly on it and secure it for the city and the citizens. Staff recommends approval, obviously, and we are requesting the same from you. Thank you.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion or motion by council. Councilmember Gilbert?
Yes, I understand, we've had numerous discussions. I would just like to see some end to this, so many years down the road, so this isn't an open thing when truck production comes back into play, and there are...
This is a one and one only.
Perfect, that's all I was asking. Perfect.
Councilmember Matheny?
Motion to approve.
Mayor makes a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, could you read item number 3 into the record?
Discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of seat number 7 on the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Madam Clerk, I believe you have some candidates.
Yes, I believe you had 3 applications, would be Adam Wagner, Richard Estill, and Jeff Perry. Adam Wagner and Richard Estill both have requested this as a first choice, and Jeff Perry as a second choice.
What is the pleasure of the council?
I would make a motion for Richard Eastill.
Do we have another nomination?
I'd make a motion for Adam Wagner.
For Adam Wagner? Any other nominations?
Can someone second one of the motions?
Do they need seconds?
Yes.
Nominations?
I'll second Adam.
We have a second for Adam Wagner. Do I have a second for Richard Estelle? And that nomination fails for lack of a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for the adoption of Adam Wagner being added to the CRA board?
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Councilmember Matheny?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item number 4 is an add-on item from the consent agenda. Originally was item E, but it's resolution number 2023-063R. Could you please read that into the record?
Resolution number 2023-06R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving the settlement agreement and resolving pending matters in the dispute entitled Richard Cherry versus the City of St. Cloud, to include the payment by the city of $150,000, affirming and approving the mediation settlement agreement dated March 1st, 2023, and authorizing the city manager to execute the mutual release and all other documents necessary to complete the settlement on behalf of the city and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Justin Kleesner, HR Director, also Risk Management, which is why I'm here before you today. So this mediated settlement agreement is something that we are asking for your approval on. This is stemming from the accident in 2019 where Mr. Cherry had fallen through no fault of his own and had some medical issues from that. So this wasn't covered under our liability policies. Stormwater pipe failures were not covered under our policies, so this is something that comes out of the city's budget, not something that comes out of our insurance company for. So after a long, negotiation process in our mediation with Mr. Manzares and I, we've agreed to an amount that we feel like is appropriate for Mr. Cherry and to resolve the issue for the city.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I guess I wanted to ask Mr. Manzares, is there a way, or should we include stormwater collapses into our insurance policy? I know of several that have happened, in and around Osceola County. So is that something we should include?
It certainly is something that we should explore, I think, but it's pretty common in most of the public liability insurance policies that those are exempt.
Excluded, okay.
And so I don't even know if there's coverage available for that. Most of it goes to the fact that there's really my understanding, there's really no good way to test the older pipes in the stormwater that would satisfy an insurance company to come in and insure it. Although you're probably thinking in your brain, I know plenty of ways to do that.
No,
But-
I just, because I know it's happened several times,
Yeah.
just, is that something we should add? But if it's
We
not
certainly
something
can, we
that,
certainly can, we can
um,
look into it, but I think
that-
that's part of
yeah,
the
that-
issue.
I won't comment on this. I mean, it's a very sad situation, but I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilor Matheny for the adoption of resolution number 2023-063R. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Gilbert. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Matheny. Deputy Mayor Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And do we have a consensus for looking into that item to see if it's something that, any objections? And I believe we have a consensus on that. Mr. Manzares.
I do not have anything, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Miller.
I only have one item.
Just one very long item.
When we had our workshop at the ranch, we discussed my goals for the year. City Council gave me some direction to make some revisions, and then I was waiting for a full board. So I emailed you the goals. I don't know if I could pass them out. I don't know if you wanted to discuss them further. They're the same goals that I had emailed you since the ranch, but I had received some a request to add more detail to some of the benchmarking items. So I can pass them around or not.
Go ahead and pass them around so we
I
have
have
to
it in an
figure
email.
Yeah. They're not one page, so. I mean, it goes along with our current year budget and the priorities that were identified in the business plan that staff has been working on this year.
Are you wanting?
I just need consensus.
Does anyone have any comment about, I'd like to comment, you know, there certainly are strategic, and I think it's a good game plan. You've obviously put a lot of thought into what you have here as goals, and I'm certainly supportive of your vision and your priorities that you have certainly set forth in this document. Any other comment? Do we have a consensus that we're supportive of these strategic goals that our city manager has set?
Awesome. Thank you.
I got 3 thumbs, I got 4 thumbs, 5 thumbs. All right.
Thank you. And then I just have one fast item. I wanted to recognize our procurement department. They were just notified that for the second year in a row, they were awarded the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials Award of Excellence in Public Procurement. So I wanted to recognize them for that. They got a little beat up earlier tonight, so I wanted to make sure they got some love. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matheny.
I feel like I should have something, but I don't think I do.
Can we please make a note in the record?
I feel like I've forgotten something. I'll circle back.
Councilmember Urban.
I don't have anything. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Fletcher.
I don't have anything this evening, Mayor.
Oh, my. Gilbert, are you going to mess it up now? I'm sorry. Councilmember Gilbert.
I have nothing.
Wow. Well, the mayor has nothing, so good. Brings us to our information report section, Thursday, April the 20th, 2023. There will be a city council workshop that has been canceled. Tuesday, April 27th, 2023. There will be a city council meeting that will take place at 6:30 p.m. here at City Hall Council Chambers. We have a proclamation that has been issued in recognition of Arbor Day. And for your review, you have warrant list number 8. And the Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes are available for your review for January, and they were approved. There are no other items on our agenda. With that, we will consider ourselves adjourned.
He didn't.